Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Hey, welcome to episode 71 of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm here to be your guide to the complexities of motorsport sponsorship. I have a vision that you, regardless of if you're a supercross racer, a snowcross, desert UTV, ATV, drag racer, whatever it may be, my vision is that you can learn how to better market yourself and drive more value for your sponsors. To help you on that journey, we have our featured guest today, which is Jordan Jarvis. She crushes it in riding motocross for Fox, Yamaha, and Monster Army. Now, before we get into the interview with Jordan and the structure of the show, I just have a few things to cover with you. All right, most importantly, I want to get your feedback, and the best way to do that is on iTunes. So if you would be so kind as to head over there and leave a rating and review, that would be phenomenal. I'm going to read one of the later reviews that I've had, which is from mymotocoach.com. Now, this 5-star rating said this: I love the first episode, and I'm working on binge listening to all the past episodes. I look forward to finding the missing link that will land me my next sponsors. So I appreciate that feedback. If you go on there and leave a rating review, that would be phenomenal. I'm actually running a little giveaway contest right now. If you go on there, leave a rating review, and then just at the end of it put hashtag swag, I'll be doing a giveaway after I reach, I think it's 20 reviews with the hashtag swag. So go ahead, do that, and we'll give away a Sponsored Rider Club podcast t-shirt. Regardless of what podcast player you use, go ahead and subscribe. That way you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. Now, our next one is going to be X Games freestyle champ Corey Davis. And then following him, we're going to have the motocross and snowcross legend Blair Morgan. That is 7C himself. Head over to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast Facebook page to be part of our future live experiences where we dive deeper into topics and also Q&A. We just had Sarah Price on April 16th, and then George Hamble's coming up next on April 23rd, so make sure you check those out. This episode was brought to you by 5 awesome companies. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal bonding technology. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsport sponsorship. Bold Racing and Suspension, they're a family race team and custom suspension experts. Armor Kote, they produce products that make your cleanup easier. Crash Addict Industries, they make extreme metal fab and safety products. I also want to give a quick shout out to some of our other partners, including MBRP, HMK, Subway Traction, and One Stop Performance. Now, the structure of this podcast is set up like a race. We'll begin with the qualifier, which is a basic intro. In Heat 1, we'll dive into Jordan's background. In Heat 2, we'll discuss sponsorship tactics and strategies. In the main event, we'll discuss mindset, and then we'll end at the finish line where we get closing comments and contact info. Without further ado, let's hop in. Now, Jordan, why don't you fill in the gaps from that intro and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm 17. I race the Women's Pro Motocross Series, and I'm making my way into trying to get my points for the AMA Supercross and Outdoor Pro Motocross as well.
Ooh.
I've been riding since I was 5. My dad actually got me into it.
Riding since 5. Yeah, my brother used to race amateur motocross when he was younger, and he started when he was like 4 years old, I think. And I think he raced until he was like 12. But it's always amazing how young kids can be when they're riding. It's pretty cool to watch too.
I fell in love with the sport as soon as I got on the bike. Actually, I was a pretty competitive kid. I did a bunch of sports when I was little. I played soccer and basketball and softball and stuff like that. Actually, t-ball. That shows you how little I was. I did all those kind of things when I was little, and I just couldn't find anything that would really, I guess, satisfy my need for competition. And as soon as I got on the bike, I instantly fell in love with the bike and sport.
So why do you think that is? I mean, what is it about? I know I love motorsports, and I don't know why, though. I mean, what do you think it is that drew you into that sport?
That's a tough question. I honestly I think it's just because I grew up watching my dad race, and I wanted to be like him when I got older. And
yep.
I like how I can get on the bike and just forget about everything else and just go out there and enjoy what I'm doing and not have to think about it. It just comes second nature to me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So that means you've been racing for about 12-ish years, right?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into that because I want to know a little bit about like some of the series that you've raced in the past, some of the transitions that you made, and so maybe that's the next step. So when you're younger and you're 5 years old, you started racing circuit. Maybe just take us from there till now.
Like I said, I started riding when I was probably about 5, and when I first got into the sport, I obviously wasn't very fast. You can't go that fast when you're that little on that small of a bike. But I think my dad got me into a couple of the local series back where I lived in New Jersey, and I did that for a couple of years. Just racing every weekend. Sometimes we actually get to 3 different tracks in one weekend. Say Labor Day weekend or something like that, where we have Monday off. We'd go to 3 different tracks and race 3 different.
Really?
So, so it's a family thing, and my parents have been really supportive about it, and they just take me to all these races. Like, it got me into a couple of new things, like arena cross. I started when I was probably about 12. That's like Supercross, but a little bit tighter. It's instead of it being in a stadium, it's in an arena. So it's quite a bit smaller. It's kind of the same style, so it gets you prepared for Supercross. And I started that when I was on Super Minis and stayed in that for a couple of years. And this year I just moved up into the pro class. It's my first year in A, and I'm trying to get my Supercross points so I can race Supercross next year.
That's awesome. So when you're doing right now, you said you're in a women's pro motocross. Would you be racing in men's Supercross?
I would probably be doing both.
Okay.
We're not sure for next year's plans. We might just do this year if I get the championship in it. I can say, I went into the WMX, the pro women's class, and did what I needed to do, and just time to move on, go do something else, because unfortunately women don't have the support that they really need, whereas in the guys class, I would probably do better with my sponsors and all that by just making it into a men's pro main, whereas I'm winning in the WMX and I'm not getting as much.
Yeah, that's I kind of mentioned this to you in the pre-interview a little bit, but one of the like ulterior motives of this show is to promote, strong female athletes too, because there is a gap there in how how the series are set up, and there's just so many more men that are in the sport. It's just created this weird slide thing, but honestly, if you look at some of the guests who've been on the show, you'll see a mixture of pretty strong female athletes, like Amy Hood was on here, and Sarah Price, who obviously used to race motocross, and Jolene Van Butte was on here for a short snippet. So lots of people are paving the way. One of the things that I've been really excited to see, it hasn't necessarily translated into the Supercross world or the arena cross world, but in UTV racing, we're seeing some women just dominating. There's Kristen Matlock and Shelby Anderson and Sierra Romo, and they're just going out there and just smoking these guys, and it's pretty cool to see that.
Unfortunately, that's a very hard thing, is to find support for the women. And I haven't had the opportunity to meet Amy Hood yet. But I don't think you talked to her, but my idol when I was growing up was Ashley Folick.
Okay.
And growing up, I could really relate to her because, like her, I have hearing problems. So that was just really cool to see somebody else that was like me in a way. And I actually got a chance to ride with her. My parents got in touch with her. I actually ended up doing a school project on her.
Oh, really?
When I was in elementary school, we had a women in history thing, and I did a project on her, and part of the project was to create an award and act like you'd give it to the person. Well, my parents were going to surprise me and have Ashley fly out, and I'd give it to her herself. But unfortunately, Ashley couldn't make it out, so instead she made it up to me, and we actually got to go ride for a weekend. Me, my sister, and my dad, we all got to ride with her and her family, which was awesome. We've kept in touch ever since, and Ashley keeps up with me and sees how I'm doing. And I would really like to do that for some other girl, give her hope that you can make something out of the sport and make it into a career, not just something to do. And Amy,
that's awesome.
All these other girls that you said, they've all had a career and they've all made something out of themselves. Like Amy Hood is doing really well right now. I actually follow her on Instagram and saw that she was at a huge movie premiere because they were doing something with monster trucks in the movie.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was awesome. That such an awesome opportunity for her, and it's going to do a lot. And I wish I could get something like that to happen for some of the up and coming girls that are coming up in the motocross sport. I just turned 17, so I'm getting to my career, like my peak career, and I'm starting to figure things out. But I would like to see some of the younger girls that are, 13, 14, 15, coming up through the ranks, dealing with the same problems that I had with people going, oh, they're just girls, they don't deserve this, or stuff like that. I would like to see that change for them when they get older.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear you say that too. While you were talking, I pulled up Ashley's profile just on Instagram to look a little bit. Am I spelling it right? Fiolek?
I believe so.
Perfect. Yeah, I was already following her. I just hadn't really actively engaged, and yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on there. So maybe that's someone I need to put on my list of people to try to talk to. If she's inspiring you, then yeah.
Unfortunately, it's going to be a little hard to talk to her because she's deaf.
Right. Oh, right. That's what you said, that that's incredible.
But she does have an interpreter, I'm sure, that she could probably get a hold of.
Wow. Yeah, that would be awesome. I'm going to have to think about that. So you said you had hearing problems as well?
Yeah, I do. I was born with hearing loss in both ears.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes, sir.
Now, does that impact, like, I would imagine for Ashley, if she's completely deaf, I would imagine that's gotta impact how you can hear the machine. Like, I'm sure there's subtle things that people hear in a machine, they can tell if it's running right or wrong. Do you have that? Do you notice that?
I've learned about myself over the years that I typically have a hard time, like, hearing if the bike's like popping a little weird or something like that. I mean, that could very well just be because I'm focused and I'm not paying attention. But something that I did see on one of Ashley's past interviews is, since she can't hear the bike, she feels the bike to see if she can feel the vibrations to know when to shift. And I actually have caught myself doing that a couple of times.
Ah, okay.
I don't think it hurts me too much. I actually think it helps me when I'm racing with the guys fast, and if they can't get around me, they'll try and rev their bike up to scare me, get me to move out of the way. It actually, it doesn't really work on me. It kind of just lets me know where they're at. So I find that a little funny.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty interesting. Maybe there is I don't know. I'm always blown away by people who can overcome challenges like that. There's been people on this show before that have gotten really badly hurt, and either were partially paralyzed and came back from that. And there's just so many people out there that are inspirational. So it's good to hear that there's another one out there that I haven't really spent too much time learning about. So I definitely have to learn more about her. Well, that's cool. So today, you talked a little bit about what you're racing and what you're focused on. But who are some of your sponsors or your partners right now?
I have some really good sponsors right now, and I truly and honestly believe that if I didn't get them a couple of years ago, that I don't think I'd be where I'm at right now. We're not, like my family itself, we're not a very wealthy family, and obviously this sport is very pricey. And I have Fox, the gear clothing company behind me. I have Monster Energy, or Army, excuse me, Yamaha, and suspension and stuff like that, and graphics. You know, my past graphic companies, I grew up racing with the people who own them, so they just supported me ever since I was on 50s. And Fox, I picked them up a couple years ago. They've been huge. I get top of the line gear from a great company, and one of the things that I really like about Fox that I've noticed I don't typically see amongst other gear companies is they're truly a family. They don't care about how you're racing. They just want to make sure that you're happy with what you did, and they want to make sure that you tried your best. A couple years ago, actually it was this past year, in the women's 12 plus at Loretta Lynn's Amateur Nationals, my bike broke first moto. Right off the starting line, I smoked a clutch, and my bike just quit right before the finish line, right after the first lap, and that was absolutely devastating, because that's actually the second time something like that's happened to me there. And I came off the track, you know, I was not a very good role model in that little bit. I was very angry and upset and disappointed, and just, you know, all those emotions at one time at such a big race makes it hard to act correctly. And I was, you know, throwing my gloves on the ground and getting mad at my parents, just mad about everything, really. And, you know, I had all my great sponsors come over to me. They talked me down. They told me it's okay. I have another 2 motos to show what I was really there for, what I can do. And they've just supported me through everything. My personal life has gotten a little rough recently. And, you know, Fox and Monster and all the great people that I deal with at all those companies, they've stood there and asked me if I was okay, if I needed anything, and if I was ever at one of the big races and needed anything, they were always right there for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And those are great sponsors too, right? I think that there's a number of people out there that if you asked them, hey, list off a couple of companies, you know, your top 10 companies that you'd love to work with, and most likely probably all of them, are all of those 3 that you mentioned, you know, the Foxhead, Monster Army, Yamaha, like the people are going to want to work with these companies. So that's awesome. And actually what I want to do is once I come back from the break here, I want to dive into these relationships a little bit more in Heat 2. But right before then, I want to take a minute to thank the sponsors for this podcast. I hear it constantly from racers that a good suspension setup is absolutely critical for performance, and that's why I'm going to talk to you next about Bold Racing and suspension. Now, it's really critical to understand your suspension, and there's so many intricacies with the valving and the shims and all this crazy equipment that you need to actually, you know, rebuild and properly set up your suspension, that it's really important, if you're ready for that next level of performance, to partner with an awesome suspension company. Now, Bold Racing is that company. They're not only specialists with their suspension setups, but they also partner with companies that produce amazing custom components. And on top of that, they're a family race team. They actually race themselves, so they really understand the type of beating that your vehicle and your shocks can take. So what I want you to do is give them a call and just chat with them. Talk to them about suspension. Their number is 702-506-5354. If you're not ready for a phone call, go ahead and shoot them an email, bold.racing@yahoo.com. Have you ever been out on the trail or at the track or in the middle of the desert and something breaks? Well, of course you have. We've all been there. But a lot of people at that point, they reach into their trusty toolbox for the duct tape or the zip ties or wrenches to fix their machine. However, there's a feeling that you get when you realize you need more than just duct tape to fix that rock chip in your radiator. That's a horrible, horrible feeling to have. And that's why I'm going to tell you next about SolderWeld's metal bonding products, specifically alloy sol. So this product gives you a longer term fix than JB Weld, which is just going to get you back to the trailer or back to the pits. With basically the assistance of MAP gas or propane torch, you can quickly and easily repair an oil cooler, radiator, AC line, or any crack or hole in aluminum. And better yet, alloy sol flux is the only flux in the industry that cleans and decontaminates the dirty and greasy surface for you. So you don't even have to worry about that part. The alloy sol rods are actually capable of a 30,000 psi fix, and they're stronger than even the parent metal, and they're built to last the lifetime of the part. So don't let a simple radiator leak leave you out of the race or broken down in the trail. Bring along some alloy sol aluminum alloy repair rod and flux from SolderWeld. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out CrashAddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. I don't know about you, but I absolutely can't stand cleaning the mud, filth, grime, goo, garbage off my machines after I go for a ride. It's just frustrating. It takes a lot of time. That's why I'm going to talk to you about Armor Kote next. Armor Kote is designed to help prevent mud, clay, ice, and other grime from sticking to your machine. It makes the cleanup quick and easy. It makes the machine actually look fantastic, and beyond that, it smells phenomenal. I don't know how to describe it, like bubble gum or something like that. It smells great. If you want to know more about Armor Kote, visit ArmorKoteProducts.com, and you will see their entire product line, all the offerings. Armor Kote is also working on some new stuff. They're soon going to release a solution made for coating the helmet and visor, and also one for wheels to help prevent mud buildup for high temp areas. So make your move now. Go to ArmorKoteProducts.com. Make a decision that's going to allow you to shorten the amount of time that you spend cleaning so that you can increase the amount of time that you spend riding and racing. I am constantly asking the guests of this podcast how they attract and retain sponsors. And on almost every single occasion, somebody gives an example of a resume. A rider or a racer resume is extremely important to your overall sponsorship pitch and proposal. And it's tough to do. I mean, it's not really the easiest thing. Anybody can go through and put together a resume, so don't get me wrong there, but it's really difficult to get something that's like unique and different and stands out, and that also is something that can be put across multiple platforms. Well, that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about next is how TopThePodium.com can actually help you build a race or rider resume that can be used on multiple platforms. I'm talking like website, PDF, something you can print off that's interactive, that looks fantastic. It looks absolutely professional. Well, that's because it's made by a professional. This is the type of thing that's going to set you apart from the crowd, and that's going to position you for a strong sponsorship proposal. So what I want you to do next is go to TopThePodium.com, and if you have a question, there's a little chat icon that pops up on the side of the screen when you go to TopThePodium.com, and you can go ahead and type your question right there. Jeff Vanestal, he is the owner of Top the Podium. He's going to be able to respond to you directly, so check it out. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We are now in Heat 2, and that's when we dive into the specifics around sponsorship tactics and strategies. And right before the break, we just kind of left off talking about, who some of Jordan's sponsors are and what those relationships look like. And, that's what we want to dive into now. So I want to kind of break that out and understand, Jordan, like, how did you get a hold of these sponsors and what they see in you, and how did you ultimately build a relationship with them? So I don't know which ones you want to talk to, but I'd love to just walk through those examples.
I think Fox would probably be my best example. When I was younger, when I was first starting out, probably 8 or 9, when we first started getting into the national circuit, we wrote up a resume and put it out there, and at that point I didn't really have anything on there other than local races. So I didn't really get that many big companies. I mean, I had a couple of great ones like FMF and my graphics companies and stuff like that. They were on board with me from the beginning pretty much. But these races like Daytona, Freestone, Oak Hill, Loretta's especially, they're such great places to talk to sponsors. Anything like that that's a big national where you have all your sponsors there. What you need to do is you need to write up a resume, all the races you've been to, like your podiums, top threes, especially wins, stuff like that. You need to have that with you at nationals. That way, when you get some free time in between races or something like that, you walk around the pits, you give it to sponsors who you want, and then you just got to perform your best the rest of the week, and that'll get their eye on you. It actually, it took me a while to get Fox. We originally put it in when I was younger, like I said, and, I didn't really have much on there, so they probably didn't think anything of it. And then I went to Loretta's probably in 2012, and we put a resume in there, and I think I got the sponsorship the very next year.
Okay. So what do you think? There was like 3 or 4 years that passed in between there?
Yeah, probably.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome. We talk about that on here, about sometimes how long it takes, and like you don't know what is going to spark a sponsorship in the future. Like they could have taken your resume back in the day and put it into like a keep watching pile. And, as soon as you turn in your other one in 2012, they're like, oh, okay, we see some updates here. Like you're on not just the keep watching pile, you're on the we're going to do something about this pile. And, you never, I guess it's hard to predict exactly how that's going to turn out.
One thing I forgot to mention is when you give them your resume, you got to sit there and you got to talk to the people that are at that race. You got to get a relationship going with them so they remember who you are. And get them a little interested. Tell them, like if they ask what races you're in, and see if they go up and watch. You just got to make sure that you don't, say anything wrong or say anything that would make you as a risky choice. You just got to talk to them, put in a good impression, and be yourself and have a little fun with it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, like, let's see, you said it was 2012, so that's 6 years ago. So you were 11, right?
It was probably about 2012 when we put it in, and I think I might have gotten Fox the next year around or something like that, because I had some, in my opinion, they weren't my best races at Loretta's. I think I got second like 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, because the first year I went in the girls' class, I actually ended up falling and breaking my collarbone in the first moto before I got the lap in. So that week didn't go too well. But the next 2 years, I actually went and got 2 second places, and then in 2014, I got my first championship there, which was great. And I think I was on Fox for probably a year ahead of that. So I think I actually got Fox in 2013.
Okay. It's just, it's impressive to me thinking of 11 and 12, 13-year-old making essentially a sponsor pitch to somebody. I feel like it's got to be challenging. I think it's challenging for an adult, and at that point, I mean, that was still 5-6 years ago. Like, since then, I'm sure you've learned a lot and matured a lot. So trying to put yourself back in that position, and going up to a sponsor and trying to have a conversation with them, I think they can be pretty intimidating. So I always think that's kind of cool. We've had a couple of people on the show before. We actually had Caden Danbury. He was 9 years old, and he came on with his mother. And Casey Sims, at the time, I believe he was 13 at the time when he came on. And same thing, like same story. They were the ones pitching, not the parents, which is crazy.
The parents have a little bit to do with it.
Oh yeah, yes.
It's obviously the character of the kid or whoever else is pitching to have them as their sponsor. But yeah, sponsors can see how hard you work just by how you talk to people at the races, how you perform, and how you deal with how you perform. That's a huge part sponsors look at, especially big companies like Fox and Monster. I think probably the best advice I ever gotten I think it was from Fox. It was probably the first year my bike broke at Loretta's. My rep, the person I deal with at Fox, there's two of them. They both came up to me and they calmed me down, and they said, we, as the sponsors, don't look at just your best finishes. We look at what you do on your bad days. So when your bike breaks, what do you do next photo? Do you sit around, you tab about it, or do you go back out there and show what you're actually there to do when you don't have something that's out of your control happen?
Wow, that's awesome. I'm glad you said that. And I'm glad they said it to you. I feel like that's a good character building. It's a good coaching opportunity. Like at that moment, that was probably the worst moment like ever, and you couldn't. I mean, there's no way to get out of it. And then to have somebody like that who is very influential come up to you and say, like, hey, this is not winning is not the only thing. We also want to see what happens when you lose and how you handle that.
Definitely.
So it's good.
That was such a hard week. I mean, you work months ahead of time. You really work all year to get to that race. You go through areas and regionals, and then you got to prepare for being there. You got to prepare for the heat, the time of the motos, your physical exertion that you put out. You have to watch. You have to be ready for anything that the track essentially throws at you or any of the other competitors, and just to, not really have a chance to completely do what you're capable of. It was very heartbreaking. And yeah, when they said that to me, it definitely helped. And I think the other thing that helped was they weren't my only sponsor to say that to me. When you come off of the track at Loretta's, all the sponsors stand up there to congratulate their riders on the podium. I had several sponsors, even people that don't sponsor me, but just other sponsors that were up there. They came up to me and they told me, don't worry about this moto. Worry about the next one. This is over. You can't do anything about it. Stuff happens sometimes, and you just got to move on. You can't dwell on the past. And I was really upset that week just because of that one race. And I really think that all my sponsors and all my friends and stuff that said that to me really helped out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. And I wonder if, the people who are at those races representing the sponsors, if they've just been around and doing this, they know how to speak. They know how to speak to the riders, the younger riders. They know the right things to say. So that's good stuff. I'm excited to hear that that's how the interactions go. Well, what about another one? I mean, is there another, and it doesn't even have to be a bigger sponsor or even a current sponsor, but, another example where you made contact or started building a relationship with a company?
Most of my sponsors, I try to build a friendly relationship with them, not all, serious, but just they're having a good time. The guy that I used to deal with at Monster Army, I think he's actually leaving. But we had a great relationship. Every time we would see each other at the track, we'd be like, "Hey, what's going on?" We'd talk. No, not even about dirt bikes or motocross or anything like that. Just how's life going, stuff like that. One of my sponsors that I mentioned already, FMF, at Freestone, actually, it was my birthday that week, and it happened to be somebody else's on FMF's birthday. We actually celebrated our birthday together.
Oh, that's cool.
We had friends that we all knew come over and celebrate both of our birthdays together, which was really cool. So it's really important to have a friendly relationship with your sponsors. Not all business, but being able to talk to them and not have to worry about, do I sound formal enough, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know what? There is more when people use the word relationship. Yeah, there is more than just the business side. Like I know at my day job, so I'm an engineering manager at my day job, and part of what I feel like allows me to be effective in that job is I need to understand, the people that are on my team. I need to understand what drives them, and that's not always just what project they're working on or what their progress is or where they need help there. Sometimes it's just like, how are things at home? Are you having challenges there? Is there anything I can do to help you there? And because that stuff, that's what a relationship is about. It's not just one-dimensional, which is why we use the word relationship instead of just business transactions.
Definitely. That would probably be some of my best advice that I can give anybody looking for a sponsor. Don't just have a business relationship. A lot more can come out of it if you have a very personal relationship with the person you're dealing with at that company.
Mm-hmm. Good. So what about a time maybe when things didn't go as well with the sponsor? You don't have to get into like names and stuff, but when things didn't work out maybe the way that you had expected, and do you have an example of that?
Probably the first gear company that sponsored me before I had Fox. We were still new to being one of the better ones in the class, like at Loretta's. Like I said, I got second a couple of times. We were still kind of new to that, so we didn't want to ask too much. We didn't want to make too much of a problem. We were still kind of learning things, but we ended up leaving that company for Fox because we felt we had a better relationship going with Fox, and we felt it was better for me because the old gear company that I was on, they were more focused on a different rider instead of me. They were putting the other rider first, which fine. She had more wins than I did, which I understand, but not really what I was looking for. I was looking for a good opportunity that I could build on. Where I was at in the other gear company, I was kind of stuck.
I think that's good. We've talked about this in episodes before, but sometimes there's nothing wrong with the company that you're working with, right? There's nothing wrong with the rider. Just sometimes it doesn't necessarily feel like the right fit. And I think that could be super uncomfortable, honestly. To be in that situation, be like, you're putting way more focus on that person over there, and I don't feel good about it. And I don't really see where I'm headed. So it's always interesting to hear how people navigate that.
Sometimes you just don't have a good relationship with the people you're dealing with at the company. It doesn't mean the company's at fault or the rider's at fault. It's just sometimes the personal relationship doesn't exactly match up with the business relationship, and it happens sometimes. You just need to find a company that you're comfortable with, that you can be yourself around and not have to worry about that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So in that situation, I mean, again, at that point, you're probably 12, 13 years old or something. I mean, you had to get some support from your parents to make that decision or make that move to switch to Fox. Do you remember how you guys made that decision?
I actually remember a little bit of it. My dad told me that we had an offer from Fox, and it was more than I was getting from the other gear company. But in order to go to Fox, we had to get rid of 2 sponsors because Fox, I actually had a helmet paint sponsorship, so they would paint my helmets for me, which was it was really cool. You're 12, 13. It just looks pretty cool to have a custom helmet. So I had to give both of those up in order for Fox. But after talking with my dad about it, I saw the opportunity that I had with Fox that I didn't have with the other gear company. It actually worked out in the long run because now when I'm on Monster, I actually get a Monster painted helmet, which
there you go.
So it was a little difficult being younger, not really knowing too much, but I talked it over with my mom and my dad, and they explained it to me. They didn't push me to pick Fox. They didn't push me to pick the other company. They just said, it's up to you. What do you think we should do?
Mm-hmm.
And I told them that I really didn't want to give up the other company, like the helmet paint company, because I really loved the helmets that they did for me.
Yeah.
But I also really liked the gear for Fox. It held up a lot better than I had, like than the gear that I had with the other company.
Mm-hmm.
We also talked to some of my sponsors that I had at the time, like what they thought the best deal would be, because we were close with a couple of them. Like we grew up with a couple of my sponsors, and we asked around a little bit, and they all said to go with my decision of going with Fox. So kind of how we led to getting that opportunity.
That's good. I want to pull out a few highlights from that I think were very helpful, and one of them is pulling in some other people and getting some help. You don't always have to make these decisions by yourself. In this case, like obviously your parents were there to support you, but reaching out to other trusted advisors, like in this case it was some of your other sponsors, but any other trusted advisors and running those decisions through them, I think is really good. It also, something that reminded me of was back on episode 19, we spoke with Tony Jenkins. He's a backcountry snowmobiler, and he did something similar where he switched. He got an offer from Skidoo, and Skidoo basically they do gear, they do aftermarket accessories, they do machines. So he had like 6 sponsors at the time, different sponsors that took care of all those different things, and he had to make a decision to consolidate and, add some risks from the standpoint of if he loses Skidoo, then he has, he doesn't have the support that he might not have any support at that point. But plus he's got to deliver that message to 6 companies that like, hey, I'm making a change in my sponsorship strategy. So that it just made me think of that circumstance, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but if people are listening and you want other examples where this has happened, go back to 19 and listen to that show, because I remember he got into some details around how he had to kind of like make that decision and share that decision with his other 6 sponsors.
That's where having a good personal relationship with your sponsors comes into play. If that sort of thing happens, you just got to go up and you got to talk to them. And if you have a good personal relationship with them, they're going to understand and see that the opportunity that you're being offered has more room to grow than where you're at now. And they should understand. Like Fox, another great example. I was curious one day. I have a friend that's going pro, like doing arena cross or supercross and stuff like that. And just, it kind of crossed my mind. I asked the person I deal with at Fox, is like, so what happens if you have to, like, if you're getting offered a bike and the team comes with different gear? What would happen then? And they said, we understand. We get that things happen sometimes, and, there's some opportunities that you just can't pass up. And getting offered a bike is a really huge deal. Like, that really helps out. And they said they completely understand. And if things don't work out with that team, Fox will take them right back. But that's where having a good personal relationship comes into. If you talk to your sponsors, you make good friends, and you hold up on your end of the deal, like the contracts and stuff like that you have to end up signing. You follow through with all that kind of thing. You thank them up on the podium. Do whatever you're supposed to do. They're going to work with you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Fox sounds awesome. Like, I want to hang out with these guys. Like, I want to, like...
Yeah, they're so much fun. They're, honestly, they're a second family. They have a tower, like an air conditioning tower at Fox. You just walk right up there. They have a couch. They have a fridge in there.
Huh.
You just go out in there, chill in the air for a little bit, because, it's really hot at it sometimes. Grab a water, relax, hang out, talk to everybody. That's one of their catch lines. That's how they get people. In my personal opinion, they go, "We're a big family," and other people will say that, but I'll talk to some of my other friends that are on other gear companies and other bike teams and stuff like that, and I'll ask them how their relationship is with everybody there, and they're like, "Oh, it's okay," and they kind of stutter a little bit, and to me, that's a sign that it's not real good and they're not real close. I don't personally like that. I like to be able to talk to the people who are helping me out, and I like to be able to go to them if I ever need any help.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's really cool. I'm glad you shared that, because I haven't had any examples of that. Actually, I don't know if I've had anybody on the show that was sponsored by Fox, like Fox Head. I think I've had Fox Tail, which is suspension and stuff, but I don't think I've had Fox Head on. So either way, it's really cool to hear that example. And really, I think if people are looking at their current sponsorship relationships and or even just trying to seek new ones, if you can find a business relationship that brings along all these other awesome personal relationship perks like Fox, that's the company you want to reach out to and connect with, because they're going to take care of you.
Another good reason to have a personal relationship with them, I just thought of it. I actually have a Fox Head sitting in my room right now. I've gotten to meet some of the professional Fox riders. Like, I kind of know Ricky Carmichael a little bit.
Okay.
I went to Monster Cup twice on Super Minis, and the first year I went, Fox had an autograph signing. And that year it was me, Garrett Marchbanks, Ricky Carmichael, Ken Roxon, and maybe one other person. But I got to meet Ken, and I got to meet his girlfriend, and I know Ricky, and it was just so cool to meet all of those pro guys. And when you have a good relationship like that, your sponsors are going to look for, other things to branch off, like to have you go do. Like, Fox got me into one of those Ricky Carmichael schools where you go out and you get to learn, and I got to learn from Ricky that day. I got to learn from Enig and Grant Langston and all of those really fast pro guys that were big back in the day, and just more opportunities to build off other ones if you pick the right one and if you're smart about what you do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you were tugging on my heartstrings there, throwing out Carmichael and Emig. Like, those are the guys that I definitely used to watch. And so yeah, if you want to give Ricky a call when we're done with this and be like, hey, you probably by now you probably go up like Rickster or whatever you call him. You got probably a nickname for him, but be like, hey Ricky, I got you set up with a podcast, next week, whatever, I set you up with a time. You're just going to hop on a call with a guy. He's going to ask you a bunch of questions. So yeah, just right after this call, go ahead and get a hold of him, and we'll have Ricky on the show too. I can adjust my schedule and fit him in.
I'll try. I don't know. He's pretty busy.
I bet. There's a few people that are on, like, I have this master list of, like, I know when I've made it, quote unquote, is when I can talk to some of these people, and Ricky Carmichael is on that list.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. I got to meet him a couple times. He likes to go to the arena classes. He's got his name on the Ricky
Mm-hmm.
Carmichael Cup, which is how you get your points to Supercross, the road to Supercross, actually.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on Super Minis and stuff, I'd be racing the Super Mini Dominator class, and every now and then I'd get a podium here and there. Actually, last year I ended up winning the North region, I guess it was, for the Dominator class. So I get to see him every now and then. He's really busy, so I get to talk to him for a couple minutes at a time. But it's really great to meet some of my idols from when I was younger, like Ashley and Ricky. They were my two idols when I was growing up, and have the opportunity to meet both of them is huge. And probably Fox has helped out with quite a bit of other situations like that I can't think of right now. Of just meeting
Mm-hmm.
new people and getting new sponsorships and stuff like that.
Another thing that I like about what Ricky Carmichael has done is even after he got out of the professional, racing, like where he's actually racing, he still had a strong brand and a strong business where he's able to succeed in motorsports. Like you said, being a part of Arena Cross and, his training school, like he's built a sustainable business off of his passion. And I think that's something pretty critical. So a lot of what we talk about in this show is really how you run your business as a racer or as a sponsored rider, and sometimes that can extend beyond your actual racing career. So I always think that it's pretty cool when you find people that do that. Even the same for, say if it's in football or some other athletic programs where, people transition into being announcers or they transition into being coaches, or, once they're fit, their body can't meet the physical expectations anymore, they still have a way to be a very big influential part of the sport.
Actually, uh, both my idols, both Ricky and Ashley, both do riding schools, and because
Mm-hmm.
of that, seeing all the new people they get to meet, all the people that they help inspire to want to race more and show that they can follow their dreams and not be afraid of it. That's actually something that I would actually love to do when I get past my peak point and start getting out of the pro ranks. I would love to do teaching or something along the lines of that, or even staying in the sport by going into Fox or Monster or something like that. Just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
staying, staying in sport, trying to help out the women, trying to find ways so that up and coming girls actually have something to race for, and they don't have stuff that doesn't really help out much. It doesn't really help get them exposure or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's good. It's a good goal. It's if people are really passionate about motorsports and racing and stuff, and it's not one element is obviously the physical part, but there's a lot of mental things too that you can do, and a lot of really good things that you can do through motorsports. So I'm excited to see what you're gonna do. That's for sure. So one thing I want to touch on real quick before we move into the main event is just something unique maybe that you've done, whether it's on social media or on outside of social media, like at races. Is there something that you feel like you've done that's kind of different that helps you stand out?
I probably stand out because I still go to public school, and I'm in my junior year. I'm almost done, and I'm graduating early next year, my senior year, so I can train more and prepare for the pro season up and coming. I think that helps me stand out, showing that I'm still in school and I'm still racing. And I definitely think that staying in public school has helped me, talk to sponsors and keep up relationships and stuff like that. And I try to talk to all the girls or women or anybody like that that's up there racing. Like, I don't like to ride with someone that I dislike or somewhere along the lines of that, I don't think it's fun. So I try to make sure that I know everyone up there, so I like everyone up there and have a good time racing against them.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I actually lied just now because I do actually have another thing that I want to talk about because I almost glazed right over it, and it is important, and I think you do a good job at it, and that's the social media. So just really quick, we won't dive too deep into it, but I mean, I don't know, what is your social media strategy? How do you share information, things like that?
I mostly use Instagram. I think my mom does Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. But I think Instagram is the best way to reach people and reach new sponsors and stuff like that. You gotta try and post positive things. And typically after a big national, I'll post a picture of me and all my awards that I won at that national and like a short race recap of how the national went. Sponsors like to see that. They like to see that you're posting often, especially if you have an apparel company like Fox or Monster. They both, and Yamaha, they all kind of give me clothes. So they like to see me posting pictures of me in gear or, apparel, casual clothing, stuff like that. That makes sponsors happy to see that they're doing it, and then potential sponsors, if they see that you're wearing clothing like that, and they can easily see that, like the name on the side of it, like the brand on the side of it, they like to see that you're approachable and you can promote their products or whatever they're trying to sell you. So that's one thing they'd like to see. So I try to post pictures pretty often during the week. I've actually kind of been slacking recently. School's getting tough. We just started a new quarter, so we're getting a little tough around here and just got back from the spring nationals. So I start back up on my old schedule and posting 3-4 times a week. Most people like action pictures. Like, they like to see that kind of stuff that typically draws more attention, typically gets more likes and stuff like that. Good grammar, that's pretty important too.
Yeah.
Well, you see a lot of kids will just put like one-liners or catchphrases or stuff like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but sponsors like to see it like a good, well-written sentence or paragraph or whatever you're doing. So basically, social media is just about trying to show sponsors that you can do it and show potential sponsors that if they did give you the opportunity that you could promote their product.
Right. It's something that I don't know if it's a pet peeve of mine or if I just don't understand sometimes, but yeah, periodically when I'm scrolling through Instagram, which is the platform that I prefer as well, but I see some of these posts and I read the transcription or whatever it's called, and I don't know what they're saying. Like you said, it's a one-liner or just a couple of things, and I don't understand the reference, or it's not a complete sentence, and I legitimately cannot figure out what they're trying to say in the post, and it's not like, I don't even think it's even age specific all the time. It's just random things that come up that I don't fully understand. And yeah, so I think, to your point, I think grammar is important. If you want people to actually hear your message, you have to convey it in a way that makes sense too.
I definitely think you should probably stay away from, catchphrases you'll hear at school or, stuff you'll hear at the tracks or something like that you'll hear in between, like, kids' conversations and stuff. I would try and stay away from some of that because typically it doesn't make much sense unless you understand the reference. So that's pretty hard to keep up with. So yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Well, now I actually am going to move on to the main event, and I'll probably, you've already given some good examples of probably what I would have wanted to ask here, but I do want to definitely hit this one. This is a question I haven't asked before. Oh no, that's a lie too. I'm just full of lies today. I think I've asked this question on only one other show before. I think it was episode 67. But it's this one. If you could sponsor any athlete in the world, so you, Jordan, making a decision to sponsor somebody, who would you choose and why?
Ooh, that's tough. I would probably choose an up-and-coming girl. I've raced against her a couple times. She's a little bit younger than me, so we're not quite there. But she's from Utah. Her name is Taylor Allred. She's a very good rider. She's super consistent, extremely humble. I don't ever think I've ever heard her say anything that would be perceived as wrong or anything like that. Her family's nice, which is extremely important, is how people see your family and the people who you hang out with. I'm pretty sure she still goes to public school, which is something that I like. Typically, that's kind of risky for people, for sponsors to pick, because, most of the time they're not focusing all their energy on riding. They're focusing on school as well. But personally, I like that. I like to see that they can multitask and, still be able to do great things on a dirt bike and still be able to focus on school, because if, God forbid, something were to happen and you can't do what you want and make a career out of motocross, you have a fallback. You graduated high school and stuff like that. But yeah, she's a really good rider, and I see her going places when she gets older if she continues what she's doing and she follows footsteps of past people and learns from their mistakes. I definitely see her going places.
That's awesome. The reason why I wanted to ask that question too is because the majority of the time, the people that are, well, I guess it's all the time, the people who are making decisions around sponsorship are people. But, they have similar thoughts as to how you might approach something, right? So if you're looking at it and saying, what, specifically what would you look for in a rider or racer to sponsor? I mean, there's some other human beings sitting on the other end of a sponsorship proposal that's probably going to have some of the same thoughts. So I think it's important to ask that question. The next thing I just want to quick touch on is an obstacle. So you've given some examples of challenges, but what's like one big obstacle that you've had to overcome in your motorsports career?
Probably the biggest thing I've had to overcome, which most people don't have to deal with, like most people in the rank that I'm at, where I'm like what I'm doing. Going to public school, I don't get to ride during the week, so I ride on weekends. I'm just a warrior. I'm a perfect example. I find that very hard to, keep up with kids that get to ride every day nonstop and, get to the gym every day, which is very hard with public school because you got homework and stuff like that, and you got to study all the time. And you got to get to sleep early so you can wake up. Like, personally, I wake up like 5:45 every morning so I can get ready for school and get to school on time. But stuff like that, I just find it a lot harder than anything else. Obviously, injuries and stuff like that, they're hard to overcome. And being a girl is a very, very hard thing to overcome. Most people just kind of, glance over us girls. They'll go, oh, there's 3 or 4 that are fast, but the rest of them are okay. They're like, nobody wants to watch that. But when we get some good races, like personally myself, I've had a couple of good races where, I've fallen or something's happened and I've come from the back and I've worked my way up to the front, make the pass for the win for the very last lap or something like that. And you're like, oh, that was the best race of the week. But if we don't perform like that all the time, this is boring. That's not fun. And sponsors typically see girls as, like a high risk kind of thing. They don't want to risk putting all their like money and stuff into the girls because, how many girls do you actually see that make it to where like Ricky Carmichael would be? Not very many. But that's in any sport too.
Yeah, right.
A good person to look at, like a good example of someone, who didn't give up is Danica Patrick.
Yeah.
She has a real good social following, and she's had the opportunity to get on TV commercials and stuff like that. I think for like GoDaddy.com or something like that.
That's exactly right.
Which is huge. She makes a pretty good profit off of all that kind of stuff, and she's fast. She's good. But I don't think NASCAR has as many of the gender problems that motocross has. You got like muscles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That automatically give guys an advantage. But that and trying to ride more, that's probably my biggest problems that I have.
Right. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's that's part of this whole thing. You got to get past challenges in order to, build sponsorship relationships, and in order to win more, you got to get past these challenges. So appreciate you sharing that. But hey, all good things come to an end, and we're kind of at that point right now. We're gonna start wrapping things up at the finish line. But before we close out, I have one last thing to ask you, and that's just, if there's one thing that you would recommend people remember from the show, if they forget everything else, what's one piece of advice that they should take away from this conversation?
A good relationship with, anybody at the track is extremely important. Like whether it's, somebody that drops the gate to a flagger, to the announcer, or a sponsor or something like that. Like, over the years, just from, trying to get out and make myself known, I've gotten to meet a couple of the pros. Like, a good example is Mike Alessi and his family. I got to know them a couple years ago, and we've gotten really close. I ridden at his tracks a couple times, and I actually got to stay at their house when we went out to Monster Cup when we needed a place to stay. A real great family. They keep up with me, and I would not have that relationship if I didn't make myself around the track and, talk to people and not necessarily, like, stay in my own little bubble. Like, get out of your comfort zone, go talk to somebody, whether it's for 2 minutes or an hour. You just got to go out and you got to have fun with it. Go talk to them, stuff like that, and definitely have fun with racing. Don't make it all serious. If you make it all serious, you're going to burn yourself out, and you're not going to want to do it for very long. So make it fun. Don't push yourself too hard to where you don't want to do it anymore. Just go out, do something different every now and then.
That's good. And I really like what you said there about good relationship with anybody at the race. So if it's a sponsor, great. If it's a person running the gate, great. Like, for me too, I'm thinking, like, you go to a concession stand, like, you should be treating those people with the same amount of respect as you do anybody else. And that stuff, like, you put positive energy like that out in the world, and it comes back in the right way and for you in the future. So that's good stuff. I really like that advice. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
I try and answer all of my Instagram DMs if I can. Probably Instagram would be the best way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. I mean, you answered mine. That's how we did this whole thing. You answered my DM, so that's awesome. That's actually, it's another reason why I like Instagram a lot, is it seems like it makes the world smaller, meaning I can get access. For me, I'm always looking for fantastic guests, and I get the best response from Instagram. So I don't know what it is. People are like, oh yeah, I can answer my DM, and I get a lot of guests. That's how the connection's made. So I appreciate you answering my message. Well, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. You know, this is a school night as well, right?
Yes.
So I'm very appreciative that you took the time to chat. You probably got homework that you got to knock out after this too. But you know, it's been a real pleasure. You know, I love your your examples that you gave. I love the detail that you went into with Fox, and then also I really like that you have a vision of where you want to go and how you want to help people in the future. I think that's that type of mentality is something that sponsors are attracted to as well. But like I said, all things good have to come to an end, and that's where we're at right now. So I'm going to close things out. Have fun and ride safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast. Please head over to iTunes, leave a rating review. That would be great. If you have any questions or guest recommendations, shoot me an email directly, podcast@impactfuel.org. Regardless of what podcast player you use, go ahead and subscribe. That's the best way to ensure that you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. We have Corey Davis coming on. He's an X Games star, and then also legend Blair Morgan. So you don't want to miss those. Please subscribe. A special thanks goes out to our sponsors, Armor Kote, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. I also want to shout out to a couple of our other project sponsors, MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and One Stop Performance. Make sure if you are following us on our social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Most recently, though, we started really popping out episodes for Facebook Live, so go ahead and check that out. Sarah Price was just on. George Hamill's up next. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.